This is TCR, TroyCommunityRadio.com. I'm Clint Myers on 1071 WTJN for David Denoyer on TCTV. Time now, it's the Mayor's Report, and with us in the studio this morning, Mayor Michael Beamish.
I am here, and good morning to everybody that's listening, and certainly to Clint and David here, who put on this show each and every week.
Had quite a show of different weather this week. Temperatures in the 60s, and then temperatures back down to the 20s, and some snow flurries,
rain, thunder.
Yeah, and even thunder.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's just been an odd winter in Ohio this year.
It's been certainly the roller coaster effect. We've had good days, we have warm days, we've had cold days, we've had snow, we've had rain, we have thunder.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. It's just typical Midwestern Ohio.
Well, the one thing I have to say that I think is good for us is the fact that we're not going through all the salt.
Yeah, we have stockpiled.
Yeah.
And that's good.
And that's a good thing.
It really is a good thing. Now and everybody knows we've done a lot of pre-treat this year.
Yes.
Whenever we see the weather might take a turn, we've tried to do more pre-treat to get the roads in preparation for a bad weather.
And they've been out with the truck that they recycled
That's
and
right.
turned into one of those treatment
That's
trucks.
right. So we've tried to do things to be proactive, but you're right. We haven't needed to use a lot of salt this year, and nor have our neighbors had
True.
to do that as well. Weather's just been interesting this winter.
Yeah.
Knock on
we'll
wood.
take it. Yeah,
We still have a
that's-
few more weeks of winter.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah, the groundhog did see his shadow,
Yeah, that's
so
right. That's right.
we're stuck with 6 more weeks of winter. Well, we're down to like 5 now.
Yep.
So, well, we're back to council. It's been. It seems like it's been a little while since you had council.
It does seem like it's been a while, and of course the agenda was rather lengthy. We had 10 pieces of legislation to discuss.
Wow.
We had 2 members of council that were not there, so we had 7 members present. But when you have 9-member council, you need at least 5 votes to pass legislation, and so.
I
But
take
those-
it some things are going back to.
Yeah.
We'll go back then because of that.
We had 7 pieces. This is kind of unheard of. Of those 10 pieces of legislation, 7 were of emergency nature. And a lot of people say, why do you need to do emergency legislation? Well, a lot of it has to do with when things come due and the timeline that's affected.
A
there.
time-sensitive issue.
And when you have that extended period of time between council meetings, many of those things become emergency due to a timeline factor.
Gotcha. So what are we covering this week?
Well, let's just cover a few things.
Okay.
Now, let's start with something that is a rather dirty thing, and that is cleaning the lime sludge lagoon. Now, we have 2, and they're at the water treatment plant, and we do have a contract with the city of Dayton to include removal of certain lime sludge, but a lot of times the capacity is greater than they could use.
Okay.
So sometimes we have to look at cleaning one of those lime lagoons so that we can have the access. And this is everybody wonders, what's that lime sludge? Well, this is part of the water softening process.
Okay.
And this is the runoff that goes along, and so we get that. And farmers like that too, by the way. Lime's good.
Yeah, they use it out in the fields.
So anyway, we've done that in the past. Before we had a contract with the city of Dayton, we've always had to clean one of the lagoons, and usually it's up to around $150,000 to do that. So council will unanimously authorized to do that process if it's needed, unless Dayton can kind of use it. But if not, we want to make sure we can get that clean so it can continue to be
Functioning.
a functioning lagoon. That was one. We had a 3-parter on one piece of annexation. That's the Philpott annexation that's in Concord Township. This is one of those expedited 2 that has a timeline, and really there's 3 parts, and this is one that was emergency piece of legislation due to the timeline of having it. It has to be passed so that it can be processed. This is on McCaig Road. There were 3 pieces. One resolution dealt with the statement of services, what will the city provide. 2 is the buffering agreement to kind of, the appearance. And then the 3rd is the consent, actually to say that we want that piece of land in the city of Troy. So it's a 3-parter. It's expedited to, it passed emergency legislation unanimously. It's something, we had a public hearing, nobody spoke pro or against it. So
gotcha.
It moved forward. We did have the local public agency agreement with ODOT. This is for the recreational trail resurfacing. This is ODOT coming to us, again, a timeline emergency piece of legislation to amend the agreement to fit the new policies that ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, has put in place. We need to be consistent, and they changed our policy. We need to fit to be in compliance with that. Again, it was a piece of emergency legislation to do that because they have a timeline they want to get started, and 7-0 vote on that one. No issue there. There was a request for a hearing for the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for a permit that's going to be located in Troy. There's some issues that needed to be rectified. And to do that, council has to request a hearing. They want to request it in the county seat, which is Troy. And based on the dates that the Board of Liquor Control has, they have to do it in emergency legislation to comply.
Now, if someone's looking for a permit, that sounds like a new business coming to town.
Yeah, well, it's a current business with a different ownership.
Okay.
And they're still looking at C1, which is the beer only. In container, and then C2, which is wine and mixed beverages. And we do that all the time, but sometimes issues are raised or the way the application's submitted, and we can always authorize for a hearing to let them come into the county seat, read it over, look at the application, and let them make a judgment on it.
Gotcha.
So council does have to pass that. Again, that was emergency legislation and needed, and 7-0 was the vote. This was an easy one too, modifying a lien agreement that we have with Jumpies.
Okay.
There were 3 principal owners of that. They have paid down the loan to the point where 2 of the principals owners would like to be left off because they were using personal property, leaving one owner
can understand that
to finish the loan, but the loan's been paid on time and there's no issue. And this came from the Small Business Development Loan Committee, and that was emergency because they want to do that without delay, so that 2 of the principal owners in the past will be taken off the lien and left with just one who can handle that, no problem.
Okay.
We had another public hearing that had taken place on going from a certain area from an industrial district to a business district. Not a lot of change in that, but we didn't have anybody speak for or against on that, and there were no comments made, so that passed 7-0 as well. Now, that wasn't emergency legislation, but it'll be a rezoning from an M2 to a B2. So,
okay.
That was taken care of. I'm saving the one of the most controversial to last.
The one that is probably the most discussed
yes.
and talked about.
The other was another area of safety, was in accepting a grant for an easement in the areas of Union and Dakota Street. I think back in April of 16, they had an issue trying to get emergency vehicles across an area that was blocked. And so they worked out an arrangement to allow an easement so that would always be an access for emergency vehicles. So that's a safety issue. They supported emergency legislation so that whole process can get finalized as quick as possible. And again, that was the area, the northeast corner of Union and Dakota Streets. There is a railroad, if you know, that crosses Union Street there, and it's that whole area. But it's a safety concern that we needed to address, and we did, and they passed that 7-0. Leads me to my 10th and final piece. Again, this was the third reading. We've had many readings. In fact, this piece of legislation deals with medical marijuana and the whole issue of processing, cultivation, and dispensaries.
It has been a hot topic in many communities.
Most, I can't speak for council. They voted it down again. Planning Commission went back to the drawing board and came up with up to 3 dispensaries in a B4 area district, and that was the recommendation of Planning Commission. This is after it had failed before at council when we tried to offer up to 5 dispensaries, and this is not knowing what the state requirements are, and they're still shaking those things out. So there's a lot of, in fact, we do have a moratorium in place, which is in place through July 13th. We had one moratorium that expired. They passed the second 180-day moratorium, so that puts us to July 13th. So we still have time to discuss this whole issue.
Well, to get any details, anything worked out, we are not, it isn't going to be where the cultivation or any of that will be in.
Every time the recommendation has come, it says no cultivation, no processing, and I'm not hearing council saying that they arguing that point.
Right.
It all comes down to how many dispensaries do we feel as a town of 25,000 needs to have, and so the discussion's bouncing back and forth. Like I said, you needed 5 affirmative votes to pass the legislation. We only had 7 people there. It was a 3-4 vote. 3, which happened to be the subcommittee that moved it forward to full council. The 3 of them voted in favor. The other 4 members of council last night said, let's talk about it again. They didn't really support the up to 3 dispensaries. They want to discuss it. So it'll go back to council. It'll go back to Planning Commission, and they'll try to find out what is a suitable number. But I have not heard anybody say the issue is dealing with the cultivation or processing. It really centers around how many dispensaries do we feel we need to have in Troy, Ohio. So now the bottom line, it's back.
Okay, the state of Ohio itself is only going to allow so many dispensaries.
That's good, Clint, and that's part of the things, that education process that's coming out. And there's a fee for that, and they're only allowing so many. And so our chances, are still unknown because we're talking the state of Ohio here.
So the possibility of even saying that there would be 3 dispensaries in the end
very remote.
Yeah, may never even have a permit issued from the state of Ohio to see those come to fruition.
So bottom line is we do have a moratorium in place, and it will be through July. So we have time. We can revisit this again. We can, one of the things that I offer or suggest is maybe we need to do it in parts. The first part is to make a decision on zoning for no processing or no cultivation. Get that out of the way, and
right.
then deal with dispensaries separately. Or put it together and have a common ground that can be supported. But that'll go back to Planning Commission now. Planning Commission then will recommend to the subcommittee. Subcommittee will recommend to full council. So the whole process starts over. It can resurface if all 9 members are there and somebody chooses to want to take a look at this as is, what was last presented, which is up to 3 dispensaries. So anyway, from last night's meeting, it didn't pass. It
okay.
failed. failed 3-4.
It's going to go back to the beginning again.
It basically starts over again in discussion.
All right. Council will be, our next council is actually the day after President's Day.
That's
It
right.
falls on a holiday.
That's right. Yeah, we fall on a holiday. A normal meeting day would be President's Day, the 20th, and so council will meet the day after on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock, City Hall, and I'm sure there'll be things on the agenda for us to discuss. Now, I should mention, if I'm sure you would have mentioned it too, we still have trash pickup and
Yes.
recycling on the day of, which is Monday, President's Day. So if you're a Monday pickup day, you want to have your trash and recycling out, as always.
That has been such a great thing here in the city, to not have to worry about or be thinking, okay, now we do this and it's going to jog off. No, you just put it out the normal day that you normally do. The only days it would be different would be Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
But last year,
Sunday.
yeah, everything fell on Sunday, so we were good.
Yeah, so it's good. New Year's too, and everything was a Sunday.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about, now we haven't talked about this yet, but we've had some changes in the fire department, as in adding some new folks.
Yeah, we did have a lieutenant. We talked about Aaron Simmons taking over that job, and he's basically dealing with in safety in services, and he's been an inspector. But we also brought on board in December, and we haven't talked about this, but a gentleman named Jonathan Duffy, and Jonathan comes from Vandalia. He is a certified firefighter and paramedic. That's a good thing. He also, in his previous, he's certified as an inspector. So that's a nice add-on to our Troy Fire Department. And he also, this is a neat thing, he's the adjunct fire instructor at the Sinclair Community College.
Oh.
And he's now part of the Troy Fire Department.
Wonderful.
So we welcome him. He lives, I think his family, I think, live right outside Dayton or towards Vandalia. He's a Vandalia graduate, so he's close to home there. But he's very happy, and we're very happy to have him on our Troy Fire Department. Again, our citizens should realize when a run goes out, we have a firefighter and a paramedic, all both trained, and our professional full-time staff. And I think that should speak volumes to our first responders and the safety awareness that they bring to our community.
Oh, absolutely. I like to bring this up and mention it just because sometimes I don't see the response from people in their vehicles. And that is when you hear the sirens and see the lights, get out of the way. Move off to the side, go to the right, and stop and let them by.
Thank you, Clint. There's a reason why those lights and sirens are on, and that is to help somebody in distress.
Yes.
One way or the other, there's somebody in distress, and the quicker they can make that response time, the better that they can serve.
All right. Mayor, is there anything else that you'd like to add to the program this morning?
Well, the only thing I would add, next week we're going to have a little history lesson. I have Doug Christian coming. A lot of people have asked coming down Elm Street about these blocks that they see out in the parking lot there.
Which
they are
those,
locked.
yeah, they came out from underneath Hobart.
That's
when
right.
they took the building down.
And we'll have Doug talk a little bit about the project that we're trying to undertake, and he's the historian, and he's also been one of our county engineers for years, and he'll probably talk a little bit about the national recognition for the Eldine Bridge. So we're going to have a little history lesson next week. I would also mention to people, remember, we do have a parking control officer on duty.
See him out every morning now.
And so I just ask everybody, speaking of lights, there they go, down through town, on a run, doing their thing.
Doing their job and keeping us safe.
And doing it well. Well, that's it. So thanks for letting me have a part of the show today. It was great.
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you so much for stopping in. This has been the Mayor's Report. I'm Clint Myers on 107.1 WTJN for David Denoyer on TCTV.